Well, that summer that I moved up to Sheridan, I hadn't been there very long and started getting comments from parents critical of the football coach's, quote, summer camp. And, you kind of want to know what's their concern. And their concern was that, in their opinion, their kids were going to be physically abused at that camp. Well, I have to admit that a football camp before school, up in the mountains, before school starts, a little bit more first class, a little bit more emphasis on football than I'd ever run into, including Jefferson County, Colorado, where they, had state champions many times. Come out of one of the many high schools in Jefferson County. So, couldn't help but wonder just a little bit about the whole concept of a camp up in the mountains. But, you're new, you just kind of roll with it and see what comes down the line. But evidently, Mr. Detai, Coach Detai, Coach John Detai Jr., I was so green and new to Wyoming that I didn't really know that John Detai Sr. was the most famous, most successful football coach of all time then, and I suspicion still today. Most successful high school coach ever in Wyoming. So John Jr., he came with expectations, big-time expectations. But, I didn't know anything about that, but Mr. Detai came around and asked me if I would come up to the camp, that he wanted me to see his operation. Well, I'm trying to get started, get oriented, and get going with being the superintendent of schools. So, no, I don't want to come up for the day, but I'll come up one evening. Good, he was pleased. Well, I don't remember how many days the camp was. I suspicion maybe 4 or 5 days. Certainly, I think contained within a week. Don't really remember, but I think that. I suspect I went up the 3rd or 4th day. Don't really know. But what I do know is that when I got up there, the kids seemed fine. The coach seemed happy and pleased to see me. But then he wanted me to specifically see something. And I guess he knew that there had been questions raised about abusing kids. I don't know how many different young men he brought before me to take a look at their feet, particularly their heels. I can't say that every one of them, but it was so frequent at least, that it seemed to me that every one of them had a hole in their heel where the top of the shoe would catch and rub. Literally a hole. And he was so proud of the fact that every one of them showed very careful medical attention. They'd been disinfected and powdered, and they were as clean as a baby's bottom. But oh my God, the pain that those kids would have been put through to rub those blisters, and to be expected then to continue to practice with those holes in their heels. I shudder now. I probably didn't restrain myself enough. I probably shuddered then. Whether I did or not, Mr. Detai realized that I was shocked and horrified by what I saw, and he said, well, I tell them if they're going out for football, they better run and run and run before camp so that they're ready for what's going to happen in camp. And if they're not ready, I think he used the word, it becomes hell week. I don't remember what our win and loss record was that year, but I don't think it was as good as Papa's. And I suppose he had the feeling, and probably correctly, that, well, yeah, they can't play very well on those sore feet, but next year there won't be so many sore feet because they'll believe me and get that running done day in and day out during the summer, so that when they come to camp, they're ready for camp and ready to play football. It's quite an experience. Other than what my face showed, I don't think I said a whole lot. But the young Mr. Detail was no fool. I'm sure he realized that I didn't really think it was a good thing.